Hello there, 4th of April 2022, coming to you from Rwanda's capital Kigali. Good evening, and this is what makes our top stories tonight. Rwanda and Zambia have signed bilateral agreements focusing on different sectors that include trade and investment. Rwanda's government is going to provide more than $350 million in cheap loans to farmers in order to boost their agricultural sector and help it develop faster. Students who are unable to see have noted that technology have continued to help them to make progress in their studies. A very good evening to you and welcome to Rwanda's television news. My name is Sam Kalisa. As we kick it off tonight, Rwanda and Zambia have signed bilateral agreements focusing on different sectors that include trade and investment. The agreements come as President Paul Kagame is currently on a two-day state visit in that country.
President Paul Kagame arrived in Zambia's touristic capital Livingstone for a two-day state visit on Monday and was received by his Zambian counterpart President Hakainde Hichilema. The two leaders then held a tete-a-tete before having a bilateral meeting with members of their delegations. They then presided over the signing of bilateral agreements on taxation, immigration, health, investment promotion, agriculture, fisheries and livestock. The Rwandan head of state, accompanied by President Hichilema and the First Lady of Zambia, toured Victoria Falls on the Zambezi River that provides habitat for several unique species of plants and animals. Rwanda and Zambia enjoy strong bilateral relations, working closely on science and technology, trade and investment, mining, good governance and tourism.
Rwanda's government is going to provide more than $350 million in cheap loans to farmers in order to boost the agriculture sector and help it develop faster. The interest rate on the loans will be less than 10%. We do have the report with Serge Node.
Rwanda's agricultural sector accounts for 25% of the country's GDP, which is one of the reasons the government is working to develop the sector faster. Farmers who take loans are required to pay at an 18% interest rate as if they are going to use the money for other businesses, which is why we are working on a project in collaboration with the World Bank worth $350 million that will begin soon and will in part look to facilitate loans in the agricultural sector. As part of the initiative, the interest rate of the loans they will take will be in single digits. It will start as a government project, and as time passes and farmers begin to pay back their loans, it will become a self-sustaining fund. We have taken enough time to plan how the project will be implemented, giving local farmers access to cheap loans. This latest push comes to supplement others, such as the Nkunganire program that helps farmers to access fertilizers, quality planting seeds and lime. Since the 2018-2019 fiscal year, the government has almost tripled the money it puts aside for fertilizers, and this has helped farmers to be largely shielded from the effects of rising international market prices. For things like NPK fertilizers, the government covers up to 35% of the cost for the farmer, while for urea it is 40%. Such moves help to increase the amount of fertilizers used per hectare of land from 32 kilograms in 2017 to 60 last year, an increase of 87.5%. The goal is to hit 75 kilograms by 2024. In the last 4 years, the productivity rate of the agricultural sector has gone up by an average of 5% annually. With the foreign currency the sector brings in for the country increasing by 25% to reach the equivalent of 445 billion Rwandan francs during the last fiscal year. Banana harvests increased by 57%, with root vegetables increasing by 19%. As for grains, they increased by 16%. That's from 2017 to 2021. Legumes went up by 9% to more than 550 tons. Remember also that these increases include the 2 years when the COVID-19 pandemic was at its worst. And that means, had it not occurred, we would have seen even better results. Parliamentarians generally commended the way the agricultural sector has been progressing and the government support that has made it possible, though there were questions raised as to why the country still relies on imports when it comes to fertilizers. when that is no longer the case for quality planting seeds, to which the Prime Minister replied that the government is working on it and that such things take time to achieve, and also that the goal is self-reliance on all inputs of the agricultural sector. Rwanda ranks first on the continent when it comes to implementing the 2014 Malabo Declaration on accelerated agricultural growth and transformation for shared prosperity and improved livelihoods.
And now to justice matters. The Court of Appeal has upheld the decision of the High Court sentencing Paul Rusesabagina and other 20 co-accused former members of the MRCD-FLN coalition to 25 years in prison for terror-related crimes. Calixte Nsabimana Sankara had his sentence reduced to 15 years from 20 years he had been given. We'd have more.
On Monday, former MRCD-FLN leaders and fighters appeared before the court for the final verdict on accused terror-related crimes. With the exception of Paul Rusesabagina, who did not appear in the courtroom, 20 other co-accused were present. The Court of Appeal upheld the decision of the High Court Chamber for International and Cross-Border Crimes, maintaining the initial 25-year prison sentence to Paul Rusesabagina after finding him guilty of financing terrorism. For Nsabimana Calixte Sankara, the appellate court reduced his sentence to 15 years from 20 that had been ruled by the High Court. The mitigating circumstances were based on the fact that Sankara pleaded guilty throughout the various stages of the trial, in addition to providing key information that exposed the terror activities of the militias fighting against Rwanda and identifying other countries that were supporting MRCD-FLN activities. Herman Senjimana, a former spokesperson of the militia, had his jail term increased from 5 to 7 years as judges ruled that the mitigating circumstances that the High Court Chamber for International and Cross-Border Crimes considered in giving him such a lenient sentence were not adequate since he had not fully pleaded guilty. 7 others who were sentenced to 20 years in prison had their sentences upheld, with Mukandutie Angelina having her jail term increased from 5 years to 20 as the judges ruled that she has been prosecuted before by the Ruyenje Sector Gachacha Court and convicted of genocide crimes. Other FLN soldiers, some who had been sentenced to 5 years and 3 years respectively, had their sentences maintained. The court also pronounced itself on the claims of civil parties who felt that the High Court disregarded their grievances regarding compensating property destroyed during FLN attacks. On this, the court ruled that defendants convicted of being members of the MRCD-FLN coalition and had an evident role in terror activities must jointly pay for the damage caused.
As we move on to other matters, Zigama Credit and Savings Society, also known as Zigama CSS, has announced a net profit of 17.7 billion Rwandan francs for the year 2021. It is an increase from 13.7 billion Rwandan francs recorded as a net profit in 2020. This was communicated during a General Assembly held today at the Defense Headquarters in Kimihurura. The 36th General Assembly was attended by the Minister of Defense, Major General Albert Murasira, Minister of Justice, Dr. Emmanuel Ugirashebuja, Minister of Interior, Alfred Gasana, Chief of Defense Staff, General Jean Bosco Kazura, and IGP Dan Munyuza, RDF service chiefs and other heads of security organs, as well as a selected list of members from security organs. Zigama CSS chairman of Board of Directors, Dr. James Ndahiro, said that the main agenda of the meeting was to present to members the 2021 audited financial statement. He said, I quote, "It was a successful year as the bank kept its growth, and we are optimistic that it will grow even more in the years to come." He further thanked members for their continued support and collaboration. Zigama CSS continues to expand the use of IT services to facilitate its members for different transactions. For instance, in 2021, the digital services transactions were 96% and 4% cashier transactions. Zigama CSS is a financial cooperative with membership drawn mainly from security organs, namely Rwanda Defense Force, Rwanda National Police, Rwanda Correctional Services, National Intelligence and Security Service, and Rwanda Investigation Bureau. And as we move ahead, students who are unable to see have noted that technology have continued to help them make progress in their studies.
The Rwanda Basic Education Board, in collaboration with the Rwanda Union of the Blind, has unveiled the Orbit Reader 20 in Rwanda, a machine that works similarly to a computer and helps blind children to study. The machine reads and writes into soft documents, shares them with teachers and other students with similar machines, and even links to regular computers. It has chat capabilities to facilitate easy communication for users. Such technological advancements have greatly facilitated the learning process for blind students, and 75 machines worth $750 each have already been distributed. Officials at the Rwanda Union of the Blind are stressing that children who can't see have a right to access such materials to help them in their learning process.
Perhaps we are asking for things that are too expensive, but if you could imagine trying to study for exams without the same books used by other students, that means that everybody else has the textbooks, but you don't, or you have been given the textbooks, but you cannot read them. And always having to rely on other people to read for you. That will depend on whether they are willing to read or not. And that also means that outside of the school situation, you are going to need other people to read to you any information that you need to access. That means that you have no privacy, no confidentiality, because any information you get, there will be third-party technology. To change this and to assist the learners with visual impairment and the people with visual impairment in their workplace who need to get or to access all the information is something that is growing in this century. It is important that learners with visual impairment have the same content at their fingertips. This expression is very appropriate for readers with visual impairment. We always talk about people having things or issues at their fingertips, but to us it is actually at our fingertips because we use our fingertips.
Figures from the Ministry of Education indicate that the country currently has 377 blind students in both specialized and regular schools.
With about 2 months remaining to the CHOGM 2022, the UK Commonwealth Envoy and former British High Commissioner to Rwanda, Joe Lamos, has said that all looks set for Rwanda to host a successful Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. During an exclusive interview with RBA, Lamos confirmed that Prince Charles, Prince of Wales, the apparent to the British throne, will be in Kigali for the CHOGM meeting, which will discuss climate change, partnerships in fighting health crisis and global security threats.
In your visit to Kigali, can you confirm that all is set for the Commonwealth Heads of State Government meeting this time round?
Absolutely. I can confirm that all is set. Now, obviously, this is for Rwanda to fully decide. Yeah. But I have met I've discussed with officials today, and they are very well prepared as always. And we are now starting to talk about the detail of CHOGM and what we want to come out of it. So it's really fantastic to be in that space. I mean, many officials here, like me, have spent 3 or 4 years preparing for this. Yeah. So I'm confident it's going to happen. It
has been postponed twice.
Postponed twice, yes.
I hope there's no third postponement this time round.
I think we're in a better place with COVID this year. We have seen that, many more countries, including Rwanda, have had, quite a high vaccination rates. Regions like the Pacific are now opening up. So of course there are still challenges and COVID's still coming in waves, but I think it's it's better. It's got to the situation now where I think we can confidently engage in international travel and international conferences. And I know that the Rwandan government will have all the COVID measures in place to be really sure.
Okay. What has these preparations, 2 years of waiting, what has it taught Commonwealth? So,
I mean, in many ways, the challenges to the Commonwealth remain the same. And in some ways, things have changed. So, of course, health and COVID and the international response to COVID will likely feature quite highly. We have now actually had COP26. We were working very hard towards that with the previous CHOGM. Now we're looking, okay, how can the Commonwealth take forward COP26? And we also have, a major war going on in Russia, Ukraine, and I think we can't ignore the fact that the world has changed, that there are risks to democracy and security, and there are big impacts on every country around the world, for example, in terms of food prices or energy prices. So things have changed, and the subjects that will be discussed at CHOGM have moved on from 2 years ago, but fundamentally I think we all care about the same things.
Looking at COVID, of course it's not the first pandemic in history, and of course now we have Ukraine crisis,
yes,
which is not the first security crisis globally. What does this tell us as we head into CHOGM 2022?
I think it tells us that alliances and networks and friends are really important. So throughout the pandemic, and now with Russia-Ukraine, we are working with our Commonwealth partners, whether that is distributing vaccines, whether it's trying to reach consensus on Security Council resolutions, for example. We are working very well with Commonwealth members and with our other alliances and networks. And so, multilateralism will always be important, I think.
Okay. How special is this meeting? I mean, we've waited for how many years?
Yes.
How special is this Commonwealth Heads of State Government meeting in Kigali?
So this is going to be the first time in 4 years that Commonwealth heads have met in person. So I think everyone's just really excited to get together again. The Commonwealth is above all a great network, and there are some things that you can do over Zoom or Teams, but there are other things that you can't do. So actually being there in person and being able to talk about all of these events is really, really special. Okay.
Being the UK Commonwealth envoy in Rwanda and someone who has lived here before, I'm sure you have something that you want to tell people who will be coming. A message to the delegates, what should they expect?
So I always say to people, it will be a very well-organised conference. I mean, Rwanda's always very good at organising conferences, but they've had extra time to organise this one. So they don't need to fear that there's nothing to worry about in terms of organisation. There's a very exciting programme being set up. Whether you're a head of delegation or a member of civil society, there's something for everybody here. And there are also opportunities for those different groupings to mingle. And ultimately, of course, we want to come up with tangible outcomes, things that the Commonwealth can really progress for its members, for its 2.4 billion members. That's ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to make the lives of Commonwealth citizens better.
Just talk about the tangible outcomes briefly. What should a common person expect from
There's going to be a
meetings?
Full range of outcomes, I think. So, for example, let me give you the UK's priorities. We are very focused on girls' education, really important to us, and we want to see better quality girls' education throughout the Commonwealth. And we have programmes in Rwanda. We're working with the Rwandan government on this. There are, for example, climate change is very important, and one of the things the Commonwealth does is help many Commonwealth members access finance for clean energy and infrastructure, and that has a knock-on effect on people. You may not sort of see it immediately, but obviously that sort of filters down and makes a real difference to people's lives. Trade, for example, is really important. We've done a lot of work for women traders. We've done a lot of work on Commonwealth standards to make it easier to trade across borders. That has a big effect on people's lives. So whoever you are, there will be something for you coming out of CHOGM.
Is the Queen coming to Kigali this time round?
The Queen, unfortunately, Her Majesty is not coming. She decided a few years ago that she was not going to do any long distance travel, and you will have seen over the last few years she slowed down a little and is handing over many of her responsibilities to His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales. The Prince of Wales will attend as both representing Her Majesty but also as the future head of the Commonwealth. I know he's really excited to come in that capacity.
So we should expect the Prince of Wales?
The Prince of Wales, yes.
Quite exciting times.
It is. It's going to be the first royal visit to Rwanda as well. So that's
Any message to Rwanda that is going to be the Rwandan citizens that will be hosting the Commonwealth in Kigali?
So I say good luck. No, I know how much effort has gone into this, whether this is officials or businesses or school children learning about the Commonwealth. I know what a big thing it has been, and I know how disappointed people have been over the last 2 years.
Absolutely.
So I guess my message is good luck and enjoy it as well. I think it's a sort of a great opportunity for Rwanda to be on the map, to showcase what it has to offer.
Jalamis, the UK Commonwealth Envoy and the former British High Commissioner to Rwanda, thank you so much for your time indeed.
Very welcome.
Thank you to Ethan Tashabia. And as we move ahead, experts have noted that it is far more efficient for developing countries to learn from each other instead of always looking for lessons from developed ones. The observation was made as part of the South-to-South and Triangular Cooperation framework that brings together developing nations in the Southern Hemisphere.
Even though it was noted that developing nations stand to benefit greatly from learning from each other, it was also acknowledged that they should not ignore developed ones.
In the development world, we have so much to learn from each other. There is South-to-South, South learning from South, but also there is North and South, or what we call triangulation, whereby South and North learn from each other, work together for development of our people. And so this meeting was to bring all the stakeholders to see how can they get coordinated to benefit from each other and work for the people that we serve, or our citizens. And apparently it was well attended, which is good, but we have to keep on engaging each other to make sure that whatever we do benefits the citizenry, our people.
Representatives of developed nations who attended the discussions expressed their willingness to help developing ones to continue making progress.
The German Development Institute was part of this discussion, and they are a close cooperator of Rwanda cooperation. They've been here, a delegation has spent a couple of weeks here, and now they continue this cooperation with India, so this will be a triangle cooperation to identify areas of cooperation of further development. So I think this is something where we already here. And we may take our implementation agencies, as GI said, to further come into this, into the South cooperation as Rwanda is practicing it. We have been doing that already to quite a considerable extent in Latin America, but I expect them to bring this here.
Rwanda is a country that has time and again proved it is willing to learn from anyone providing beneficial information and lessons.
We need to assess where, and we definitely do, not only in Rwanda but also in other countries, what we have as strength, what we can share as good practices with other countries, and be ready to share and to learn from each other. I think it's also important to learn from each other, but also very important to change our mindset that all good solutions, or I would say the mindset we had that we have to look for all solutions in the global north, but we also have solutions and good practices we can learn from each other in the south.
In 2018, developing nations accounted for a quarter of global trade and a third of all investment, with immigrants in developed nations sending as much as $466 billion back home to developing ones.
And on behalf of the entire news production team that made it happen, thank you very much for being with us. My name is Sam Kalisa, wishing you a safe evening and a fruitful week ahead. Goodbye.